Okay guys, for another installment on our baking for special diets. I'm going to show you guys how to make a quick, simple vegan meringue, okay? Vegan meringue. And I got a couple different talking points here, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I'll let you see the vegan meringue as it's done, okay? And I could have whipped it a little bit longer. As you can see here, we have some soft peaks, and it's probably about 10 minutes old, so it does die a little bit quicker than meringue, but as you can see, that nice shiny appearance, the texture, light and fluffy still. Color, really white and opaque, which is interesting because the product that we use to whip like egg whites is actually an off-white. It's aquafaba, okay? So what we're using here today is called aquafaba, which sounds like a really complex chemical. It's not. It's the water in a can of chickpeas, the water in a can of garbanzo beans, okay? What you do is you take your garbanzo beans, the can, I crack the lid open just a little bit and pour all that water out. Leave all those beans in there. Just strain all that liquid out, okay? And then your next step is going to be to reduce it down. Make a reduction with this chickpea water, okay? And you reduce it halfway. We consider it a halfway reduction. We reduce it down half of the amount of whatever it is. So if you have a cup of that aquafaba, that chickpea water, you reduce it down, you should have half a cup. I did a real simple, quick one. I poured all the juice into this container, I drew a line, then I put it in a pan and put it on real low heat, small simmering bubbles, reducing, all that water is evaporating, and then I checked it again, I poured it back in the container, and it was about halfway up, so I know I'm ready to go. Then you need to chill it. So properly chilling your aquafaba, after reducing it, it's gonna be hot, and we can't whip, just like your egg whites, it's not easy to whip hot. Egg whites, obviously, you'll cook them, but this doesn't whip really well hot either, so we need to fully chill it first, and then we can start to make our meringue, okay? But once we've made that aquafaba properly, we can essentially use it just like egg whites, as if it was an egg white substitution specifically for recipes that are looking to incorporate air into the eggs. So for example, if I'm doing a sponge cake that I want to make vegan, I can make the aquafaba meringue in place of whipping egg whites. If I was trying to do one of the Bavarians or a fancy mousse that has meringue in it, I could use the aquafaba. If I'm trying to do macaroons or a baked meringue, right, incorporating air again, I could use the aquafaba. But for example, if I'm trying to do, let's say, a vegan banana bread and I need egg as a binder, as a binding agent, then that's when aquafaba isn't really going to be the product that you want to use. There's a couple different things. Egg replacers are flax seeds and chia seeds. If you don't know about those yet, flax seeds and chia seeds can be ground in a coffee grinder, essentially like we're grinding our peppercorns or lavender, and then we soak it in a specific amount of water. It will absorb all of the water, it will hydrate, and it will become light and fluffy and liquidy and sticky, similar to an egg yolk. And that acts really well as a binder, okay? But realizing you gotta know what you want out of the product to pick which egg replacement that you prefer, okay? So for this, I'm just doing a vegan meringue, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and get started. So like I said, once you reduce the aquafaba properly, you can use it essentially as a substitute for egg whites. This recipe here, we figured out in this kitchen. My vegan student figured it out with me. We found it out through a trial and error, and I'm gonna talk about it as I go, okay? Originally, my vegan student came in and we wanted to make vegan macaroons. Very complicated kind of process to wrap your head around, but once you understand how to make a real macaroon, we used essentially the same concepts and procedures, and we had a really, really great product come out. So, the original recipe that we used told us to make essentially a meringue, if you will, with aquafaba, but making it more like a simple meringue or a Swiss, where you're just putting in granulated sugar, maybe warming it up a little bit, and then whipping it fully. What we noticed was we just didn't really get a strong enough meringue, something that was sturdy enough to hold up to folding in ingredients, or just holding its shape enough to bake and solidify as if it was a real macaroon. So, me and my student decided, why don't we try the aquafaba like an Italian meringue. Whip your aquafaba first a little bit until you see some light foamy, possible soft peaks, and boil your sugar in a syrup solution, 243 degrees, and slowly pour it down your bowl, just like the Italian meringue. Let it continue to whip on high speed until it is fully cooled down, and you will have something that is, in my opinion, as close to a real meringue that you're gonna get. So realizing that the other two don't work very well, if I have a recipe that says make a simple meringue and I want to do it vegan, I'll do an Italian anyway. And I'll just use that meringue as if it was the simple meringue, and you get really, really great products, okay? So we're gonna start whipping this, and you know my little trick, that whisk isn't touching all the way. Make sure we incorporate some air into those aquafaba juice before we pour our sugar in, right? Now, essentially, I'm only showing you how to do this meringue today, okay? Because as a chef, we've already learned how to make macaroons, we've learned how to make a bunch of different products, we've learned how to make all the meringues, and we've learned how to incorporate those meringues into our product. So you, as the chef, should be able to take these concepts now and build upon them. You can use this meringue as if it was the Parisian macaroon, one variation in the book, and fold in your just powdered sugar and almond flour. You can try to do the Parisian macaroons 2 variation and use a little bit of the aquafaba or some flaxseed as a binder in the first step with the almond flour and the powdered sugar. Make your meringue and then bring the two together. You can use this as a vegan meringue if you're trying to do, like I said, a Bavarian mousse, if you're trying to do one of those charlottes, a gâteau. Maybe you're trying to make a vegan Napoleon, and whipped cream in the vegan world is kind of hard, so you use meringue to make it light and fluffy. There's a lot of different things you can do. Making a souffle, using this would be actually really fantastic as well too. So I just want to show you the concept of how to do it, and then you can use it in whichever way that you want to. So we're checking our temperature, looking for 243, right? We're at 243 now. Let's go ahead and start pouring it into our aquafaba that's already whipping pretty well, and we're gonna pour it slowly down the side of the bowl. Just like the Italian meringue. Essentially, it's what you're doing. You're making an Italian meringue with the aquafaba. You can try to make the simple meringue. You can try to make the Swiss meringue. But aquafaba is not as strong as a real egg white. So, in my opinion, the Italian version works best for aquafaba meringue. And now we're gonna let it whip, right, until it fully cools down. We'll feel the bottom of the bowl. Once that fully cools down, we're ready to go. We did see a little bit of a yellow tint to the foam before we poured that sugar in there. Now that we poured that sugar in there, it is turned almost a bright white color. You can kind of see it there. And it's become really thin and wet, which is kind of interesting. It looks not quite like your real meringues. The real meringues, when you add the sugar into them, they do get really thick and fluffy at first. This one thins out a little bit, but let it whip until it is fully cooled, just like the real Italian meringue, and you will get a great product, okay? Now, when it comes to making the aquafaba meringue, it has to be treated a little bit differently than the egg white meringue after it's made, depending on what you're doing. So, for example, if you're doing a Bavarian mousse or something where the meringue is staying raw, you shouldn't have any issues. Just go ahead and fold that into your cream, into your fruit, into whatever filling that you're making, and you shouldn't have any issues. But if you're trying to bake this meringue, use this as if it was a baked meringue, the timing's a little bit different. If you cook this as if it was a regular meringue at a 325 degrees, let's say we're trying to do the macaroons, what's gonna happen is the moisture isn't gonna be able to evaporate in time. And what you're gonna get is either a undercooked meringue or something that just doesn't have enough structure to be able to come up off the tray and support itself. Because we wanna make a macaroon that actually holds its shape, right? And you can put back together. So, the baking temperature for this is actually really low at about 250 degrees in the oven. And because it's at a much lower temperature, you're usually looking at a lot longer cooking times, okay? But realize that if you're having issues when you're baking the meringues or the macaroons, depending on what you're doing with this, reduce the temperature down and give it a lot longer time, okay? They will come out of the oven a little moist and a little flimsy compared to the standard macaroons, but let them fully cool and dry, and they will solidify and come together, okay? I'm gonna let you go ahead and see back into this. It's about halfway cooled down already, and you can already see I've got soft peaks. It looks fantastic. Oh, I'll go ahead and stop and I'll show you for real. You already see some soft peaks happening. And it's still warm, so I do need to let it fully cool down. But look at that. Look at that. So we're gonna let it go just a little bit longer. Boom. Now there is a flavor difference with this type of meringue, okay? Egg whites, honestly, are relatively neutral in flavor, right? Garbanzo beans, however, are not. They have a stronger flavor. Some would say earthy, especially if you're eating them raw or let's say in a spread or in a hummus. For this specific instance, you actually get more of a nutty flavor. When you use it with these sugars and whipping it, the nutty flavor kind of stays more proficient, more in the front of your palate, especially when you bake these meringues. I personally prefer the flavor of the vegan meringue and macaroon over the standard meringue and macaroon. You get more of a rich flavor, more of a, like I said, a nutty flavor. Whereas, you know, the normal macaroons, they're okay, but in my opinion, it's kind of neutral, a lot of just a sugar flavor where, you know, you want a little bit something else in there as you're eating it. Just tons of sugar in your mouth, in your palate, in one bite isn't always pleasing. So we like some other flavors in there to kind of enhance what's going on. With this one, the aquafaba meringue, I do suggest whipping the aquafaba to a decent thickness stage, fluffy, soft peaks, but not so foamy. Get it a little bit further to foamy to where it starts to look kind of like a meringue, before you pour the sugar in it, okay? This one I could have gone a little bit further before I poured the sugar in, and now you can see it's softer peaks and it's kind of falling a little bit. Whereas this one you're gonna see is probably gonna have a lot sturdier peaks. It's gonna have a lot more structure. Pretty much cooled down all the way. I think we're pretty much ready to go. All right, we'll take a peek at it. Look at that. I could probably go a little bit further and get a little bit more of a stiff peak. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Yeah, the video right there? Right. Probably get a little bit more of a stiff peak, but look at that. That is fantastic. A fantastic product for being all natural, all vegan, okay? Really, really impressive. I love this recipe. It's fantastic. It's amazing. So much to be said about it. Okay, flavor and uses. You can really use this pretty versatile. Versatility? However you would say it. Okay. Last question for the assignment. How do you make vegan meringue? What is aquafaba? How do you prepare it? And how do you use it to make a meringue? I hope you learned something. See you guys soon.